Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner Studio, and with me today is Front Royal Chief of Police Kahle Magalis and Commonwealth Attorney John Bell. We're going to talk about the new marijuana laws that go into effect on July 1st, I believe. So, Chief, take it away.
Yes, sir. Well, obviously we've got, it's a brand new day. There have been a lot of changes to the law that affect law enforcement and the public. So that's why I contacted you. I thought it might be good to get a little public education out there, and I figured there would be no one better to bring to the table than our Commonwealth Attorney John Bell.
That's who we're going to end up seeing here if we violate these laws. So.
Right. So
people are scared of the police. No, this is a guy you need to be scared.
That's right. We're just the first look.
That's right.
He's got the final word.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what John has to say.
We figured we'd bring John in to provide some guidance and education for folks.
Good. John?
Well, the General Assembly pushed this through, as a part of a massive bill that changed sections of the Virginia Code all over the place. And we're not even really going to be entirely sure what the law will be ultimately down the road, because a lot of the parts of the changes in the marijuana law need to be reenacted by the General Assembly in 2022. And if they are not reenacted, then those parts of the law don't go into effect. Now, the one that concerns everybody most that will go into effect in July is that personal possession of less than 1 ounce of marijuana is no longer a crime.
No crime at all?
No crime at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
If you are under 21, it is still an offense. Yeah. If you are selling marijuana, you are still committing an offense. The General Assembly is setting up a whole system. It's kind of like a privatized version of Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control to manufacture, distribute, and sell marijuana. Now, all of that legislation is part of what needs to be reenacted. Yeah. So we're in a situation where if you've got an ounce of marijuana, you're not committing a crime. If you sell somebody an ounce of marijuana, you are still committing a crime. Yeah, and use of marijuana is not a free-for-all. You cannot walk down the street smoking a joint. That is still an offense. Now, it's a civil penalty, and the officer can get you a ticket for that and make you pay a fine in court. Now, I guess the question is, during this meantime, is there any legal way for people to obtain marijuana? Well, there is a legal exemption for growing no more than 10 plants. And
10 plants, okay.
yes. If you have more than 10 plants, you commit an offense. Yeah, the further you go up, the higher the degree of offense it is. Now, those are purely for personal use, not for resale. There are certain provisions to be able to give away to people, and these plants actually have to be tagged.
So you just can't go plant these in your backyard and...
Well,
you can.
You can.
But you have to label them. They have to be tagged
Yes.
with your...
Well, it sounds like to me, I don't know that much about marijuana, but it sounds like 10 plants would be more than 1 ounce of marijuana.
I think they have to be tagged with your driver's license number, social
Yes.
security number, and marked for personal use only. Correct, John?
A person may call... a person may...
four, right?
I'm not for. The 10 is when it gets
10
to
is
more
when it becomes
serious crime by
criminal.
mistake.
Okay.
May cultivate up to 4 marijuana plants
Okay.
for personal use at their place of residence. At no point shall a household can have more than 4. So
Okay.
it's not 4 for you.
person.
Four,
Per
it's not 4 for you, 4 for your wife, 4 for your girlfriend, 4
Right,
for your
right.
girlfriend's kid who
Yeah,
is
right,
crashing
right.
on the sofa.
There's no loophole for that, right?
No loophole for that.
All right,
Yeah.
so 4 plants. All right.
Okay, ensure that no marijuana plant is visible from a public way. So, like, for example, if your backyard or your front yard is visible from the street, you don't grow your marijuana there. You have to take precautions to avoid unauthorized access by persons under 21. I'm not sure how you do that. I guess it's an attractive nuisance, like having to put up a fence for your pool.
I
Because you put it in your walk-in closet. You know?
I suspect most people would be trying to prevent access from anyone else.
Exactly. I would think
It's
so.
against the law,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, you have to tag a legible tag that includes the person's driver's license or identification number and a notation that the marijuana is being grown for personal use as authorized under this section, which, if anybody wants to write this down, is section 4.1-1101 of the Code of Virginia.
All right.
Yeah. It's almost like having to put the deer tag on your...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So...
Don't get caught without the tag, right?
Don't get caught without the
Right.
tag. And, there's no guidance in this legislation as to how big the plant has to be before you put the tag on. I can see visions of people with little plants bent over from the tags.
Right.
But as I said, this legislation was not really thought out carefully. But the bottom line is you can do it. But... Yeah, you've got to follow the rules. Now, where that 10 comes in, if you have more than 4 but no more than 10, civil penalty of $250 for a first offense, Class 3 misdemeanor, which is a $500 fine for a second offense, and a Class 2 misdemeanor, which is a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail for a third or any subsequent offense.
So the felonies have gone away.
Well, yeah.
I mean, so far as
we can
possession.
still get there, but if you have more than 10 but less than 49, it's a Class 1 misdemeanor, the full 12 months in jail. And more than 49 but no more than 100, and more than 100, you can get a felony, a Class 6 felony. It brings it under essentially the old drug manufacturer statutes.
Yeah. 100 marijuana plants, that's a lot of plants.
That's a lot. That is a lot of plants.
Yes.
We've seen more, but that's quite a.
Not
that's
growing in your house.
No. We've seen them, and we've seen indoor grows with that many plants
Yeah.
before. Typically, those larger ones are outdoors.
Right. So marijuana as a whole is not legalized. It's being strictly controlled. The same way you can get a license to open a distillery. You can also distill back in the hills, but
Right.
that one is a felony. The same sort of way. There are the Virginia ABC and the federal tax authorities are not going to worry about you if you distill a gallon of whiskey at home. Yeah, if you have your 4 marijuana plants at home, the state of Virginia doesn't care if they're properly tagged. But if you are setting up a commercial growing business, there is, or at least there will be, a proper channel to do that. And if you go outside of that, you're committing an offense of a various degree. So basically the enthusiastic hobby grower is committing a misdemeanor. The guy who's essentially growing quasi-professional without getting the proper license from the state is committing a felony. All right. Now, until January 2024, the law continues to be in effect that any person who manufactures or marijuana or possesses marijuana with the intent to manufacture, not for his own use, is guilty of a felony. Not less than 5 nor more than 30 years. So there is still some major restrictions on this. This July 1st date is not a license to put in the giant grow system. If you do that, you will be prosecuted. All right. There also, you cannot manufacture resin. That's still a Class 1 misdemeanor if you do it particularly inside a house or any curtilage.
We're seeing more of usage of products from resin.
Yes.
The wax and dabs and things
That
like
has nothing
that.
to do how they do the oils and
Yeah. Well, there are some oils that are not considered marijuana.
Right.
Some of these CBD
The CBD.
oils, they're a hemp product, but they have too low a level of THC to be considered a drug. They're just an agricultural product. Now, those are regulated as well through other laws.
right.
A lot of the language that has been changed in the law refers to it now as cannabis oil. Correct,
Right.
John? They're going away from the term marijuana and they're using
Right. Well,
cannabis oil.
they're trying to make it a little less controversy, maybe.
I guess.
All right. Now, come January 2024, assuming the law gets reenacted in 2022, once they have the legal method of distributing, they'll create new offenses for giving and selling marijuana. It'd be a misdemeanor for a first offense, class 2, or a class 1 for a second offense. It's always going to be a misdemeanor to give it to somebody underage, intoxicated, in many ways tracking the ABC laws. Yeah. And come 2024, no marijuana or marijuana products shall be imported, shipped, or brought into the Commonwealth. Basically, the General Assembly said if we're going to have it, we are going to tax it. We are going to get the benefit of it. And a lot of this is basically going to be anti-bootlegging laws.
Right.
Yeah, that we're going to set up state-approved monopolies for the production and distribution of cannabis and cannabis products, and nobody else is allowed to do anything that we can't tax.
And as well-intentioned as some of these laws are, by the concept of legalizing it and making it available for distribution and consumption by the public, you're still going to see black market weed. I mean, our friends in Colorado are recognizing this now. There's almost as much black market weed in Colorado that's being used and consumed as there is legal marijuana in Colorado. So some of those things just don't go away.
Yeah, it's analogous with alcohol. We've had legal alcohol sales in this country since the end of Prohibition, and there are still people back in the hollows.
Right.
A while back, my wife took some folks from her senior assisted living center on a tour to a legal distillery in Page County, and when they were giving the tour, they said, we are not the first distillery in Page County. We are probably not the largest distillery in Page County.
We're the only
but we are
legal.
the first legal distillery in Page County.
Yeah.
And it will be the same sort of thing.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Now, there are provisions where you can share your marijuana. That if you have legally grown your plant and you have the legal possession of it, you can give it to another adult. But the statute requires that there be no exchange of any kind. It has to be an actual sharing, and you cannot exceed an ounce. So if your 4 plants create a couple of ounces, you can in fact legally give one to your friend. But that friend has to be over the age of 21, and they're very specific about making this an actual gift without remuneration. You can't do one of these things around it.
Like, charge me for the baggie. That's $100 for the bag, but I'm going to give you the marijuana for free. Is that how that works?
That's exactly it. It's none of the, I will sell you this $10 pipe for $110, and if you buy my $110 pipe, I will give you a free ounce of marijuana.
Right.
That is in violation of the statute. You can't do it in conjunction with any other services. Like, for example, if you're having a sale at a store, you can't give away free weed. Okay. Basically, banks are not going to be able to give you a bag of weed instead of a toaster for opening an account.
Well, I'm sure some would try, wouldn't they?
Well, it would be a heck of a marketing tool if it were legal.
Right.
I'm sure.
You're not going to be able to go to the flea market and swap a bag of your weed for a fishing reel.
Okay.
It's got to be an honest-to-God sharing or gift. Any kind of transaction makes it an illegal sale.
You got 2 more sheets left. Let's see
Well,
what
I've got a number of sheets left. All right. No person shall consume marijuana or a product, whether in a public place. We had talked about this earlier. First offense, civil penalty, $25. Second offense, civil penalty of $25, and they can order you into a substance abuse program. Now, let me tell you that it's no joke to have to take time off work to get through there, and these programs do not work for free.
Right.
So lighting up and walking down Main Street once will get you a relatively minor ticket. The second time you go around, you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops. Third time, the fine goes up to $250, and we'll run you through the substance abuse program again.
Right. That's this is one of the items that we see being somewhat problematic. Is not much different from alcohol, but people using marijuana in public places. I mean, if somebody's at the park or things like that, and their families with kids, other parents don't want their children to be exposed to that necessarily. So I expect we'll get quite a few complaints.
Well, I was looking at the crime report. This intoxication is one of our primary crimes that we have in
Right.
Warren, well, every county. But
Yeah.
I see that what you think of a crime is pretty low, but when you look at the crime report, it's intoxication,
Yeah.
disturbing the peace. These are all normally alcohol-based.
Right.
Domestic violence. There's most all of those are alcohol-based, and
Yeah.
so I'm sure, or
They're-
some sorts of drugs.
Public nuisance type
Yeah.
violations and
Cussing in public, and
Yeah.
and they're always drunk, So.
yeah.
Well,
folks do
Oddly
use.
enough, the cussing in public part has been repealed.
gone
Yes,
away.
I heard that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, public place is any place, building, or conveyance to which the public has or is permitted to have access, including restaurants, soda fountains, hotel dining areas, lobbies, and corridors of hotels, i.e., you can't light up in the motel hallway. Any park, any public resort or amusement, highway, street, lane, or sidewalk adjacent to a highway, street, or a lane. Basically, if people can see you and you're out walking around, that's not a place where you can legally use marijuana. And I will tell you, our office has no problem enforcing that. Yeah, basic idea is, we are fine with what you do in the privacy of your own home, but in the public, you're going to have to restrict your actions. As the chief said, that there are families with kids, who may have elected not to expose their families to that at this time.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Moving vehicles. Yeah. It's a class 4 misdemeanor starting July 1 to consume marijuana in a moving vehicle. Yeah. Everybody's seen the classic Cheech and Chong movies where the car, with the
Exactly.
cloud on the
Smoke.
inside
Yeah,
is
exactly.
driving down the street. $250 fine.
So
for
even the
that.
guy in the back seat, he can't be smoking while you're driving the car down.
No.
None of that. All right.
And there's a presumption that you've consumed, if there's an open container that has consumed or partially consumed marijuana products in it, and if anybody looks high, basically appearance, conduct, speech, or other physical characteristics of such person, excluding odor, that's a whole separate thing, is consistent with consumption of marijuana and marijuana products. So it's just like the open container law in the car. It applies to marijuana as well. And keep in mind that driving under the influence of drugs still applies to marijuana. Yeah, it's alcohol, drugs, or any self-administered intoxicant.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we using the field sobriety test? Is that how we're testing for drugs now? I mean, there's not really a...
Yeah, it's all going to be based on impairment until we. Again, this is one of those things where some of the testing processes are not necessarily keeping up with the rate at which things are being legalized. I
I
guess we
don't
could
see
put
what
it
the
that way.
court, how the court handles it.
Well, there's no field screen for marijuana.
Right.
Yeah.
It's impairment. It's a judgment of
And
impairment.
you walk the white line and
Yes.
touch your nose and...
Yeah. If you're driving 25 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone, and your pupils are dilated, and you seem oddly relaxed about the entire
Yeah, like,
encounter.
what? No worry.
Yeah. What will happen at that point, once you run through the battery of field sobriety test and there's enough impairment to justify an arrest, you will be taken down to the new Warren Memorial Hospital, and a very nice technician will strap your arm and draw blood. And that blood will be sent off to the division, Department of Forensic Science, and a lab technician there will analyze to see how much THC you have in the blood, and that will be presented as evidence against you in court. And the penalty for driving while high on marijuana is the same as driving drunk. And you just don't want to go there.
No.
Again, that's another crime that we expect to see probably increase in frequency, just based on what we've seen from other states that have legalized recreational marijuana. Again, Colorado, I've spoken to some of my colleagues out there, and they saw a pretty good spike in DUID offenses once recreational marijuana was legalized.
Now, I've heard, we mentioned the word odor. Now, the dogs have kind of like been put down, haven't they, as far as...
Well, we don't put them down, Mike.
No, I mean...
don't say that.
That's a wrong word, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, as far as they're using dogs to detect marijuana or drugs in cars, is that something that's...
Well, we're still using dogs to detect drugs in the car, but these dogs have been trained only on drugs other than marijuana.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, there is a specific statute which the General Assembly passed which prohibited an officer from conducting a search based solely on the odor of marijuana. Now, the problem with all our drug dogs is they don't have a separate signal for each drug. It's not, Rex bark once for weed, twice for coke, 3 times for meth.
It'd be cool if they could, though, right?
It would be very cool if they could. Yeah, so...
Hey, we're going to tell people they can.
yeah. So the difficulty, obviously, is you don't know what the dog is hitting on.
Right.
Because with the statute that prohibits the use of odor of marijuana as the basis for a search, it's be like having a dog that's trained on marijuana, heroin, methamphetamine, and Old Spice.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we have to not train dogs on marijuana in order to
Correct.
make it
Yeah.
legal.
As a matter of fact, we'll give props to the Sheriff's Department. They were way ahead of this out front, and all of their dogs now are not marijuana trained. They are all dogs that comply with the current law, and a sniff from that dog is a perfectly good basis for a search.
Well, I know that what I hear, because I have no personal experience, but that maybe I do. When I was in a Kiss concert once, I thought that's strange odor coming around. But if you got it in your car, you should be able to smell it. I mean,
The dog or
no, the weed.
depends on the amounts. I mean, if it's
If they've been smoking it.
oh yes, absolutely. I mean, there's the burnt marijuana is a pretty it's a pretty unique odor, and most people recognize that. Large quantities of unburnt marijuana, you can smell it, but if it's a smaller quantity, you may not. Of course, the dogs, they can.
Oh yeah,
they can smell everything.
Yeah, in the car next door.
When they're trained on those odors.
Yeah.
So when the officer rolls up on the vehicle and he smells marijuana, that doesn't give him a cue to do anything. However, the rolling cloud of smoke in and of itself is a cue that he can use. The roach or the joint,
and the pupils
or the joint sitting there in a cup or in an ashtray,
Yep.
the baggie on the seat next to the individual. All those are cues that provide a basis for him to do the consuming marijuana while in a motor vehicles ticket or
Potential DUID.
potential
investigation.
DUID investigation, which means you're on the roadside, you're walking the line, you're doing the one-legged stand, he's holding a pen in front of your eyes, seeing how you track, and if you have enough issues with those, you're back down there with the needle drawing blood from your arm.
Right. Well, it's like you say, it's not much different than our alcohol laws, and we know how that goes. People are violating it constantly,
Right.
and so I'm sure that this will be nothing. Well, they're already violating the marijuana law in the past, so it's just going to be
Sure.
maybe.
Well, you'll
hope
have
it's not anymore.
You'll probably have more people that are utilizing marijuana now, because this is going to essentially give folks permission that didn't have anything prohibiting them in the past. I mean, so
Right,
some folks,
right.
have always done marijuana, but I suspect there will be some newer increased usage, certainly from the legalization of it.
I've been asked also about what about cases that people have already been charged with some of these laws. Someone said they're not investigating, but reviewing and possibly are going to be releasing
A
people
lot
that
of
have had.
expungement going on.
There
Records.
are some parts of the marijuana statute which, when they go in effect, will partially seal some of the old marijuana convictions.
Right.
Yeah, so that's still a work in progress. Some of that legislation needs to be reenacted in 2022. Some of it will be going into effect, gradually. And as far as our office goes, cases are still in the pipeline. We're looking at those on a case-by-case basis.
it's kind of like the speed limit. One day it's 55 and the very next day it's 70. But yesterday I got a ticket for going 56, so.
Yeah. Yesterday you broke the law. Today
Yesterday
you
I
didn't.
broke the law, and that's so. But people are. I know that we have a lot of people in our jails, and spending a lot of money for that. And I'm assuming that there'll be a whole movement on trying to.
Right.
Well, it's been a long time since people pulled a lot of jail time for simple
marijuana.
possession of marijuana,
Right.
even before it was reduced to the civil penalty. And sale of marijuana is still going to be a crime and will continue to be a crime unless you are part of the government of Virginia sanctioned programs. Yeah, you're basically will become a bootlegger at that point
Right.
unless you have the appropriate licenses.
So when is the pharmacies going to start coming around starts popping up in town?
Well, and none of that is scheduled. But right now they're looking at 2023. Right. I guess they
Yeah.
kind of have
Yeah.
moved that up a little bit. But
Yes.
I noticed that out in Arizona when I visit relatives in Arizona, you'll see the green pharmacies. But when I came back a year or so later, quite a few of them have closed.
Right.
There's a lot of, they can't get a bank account. They can't do this. They deal in cash. There's a lot of things that hinder a business. And
Right.
and you know what? And in some places, just not enough people bought it.
Right.
So it's not all what it's cracked up to be as far as being a lucrative business. It may
Right.
be for some, and so don't go out and invest all your money in marijuana pharmacies.
Right. Right.
When they legalized it in Canada, there were so many growers that the price collapsed, and somebody estimated that they had enough of a supply on hand to supply Canada for a decade with no additional product being
Right.
created.
Well, there is something when you mention the black market and the bootlegging and the illegal drugs. It does have a tendency to either change the product, because now you get the real stuff. That's, it's like 3.2 beer, right? Well, we're going to have real beer, we're going to have real marijuana. So you'll have few of your hardcore people will still be doing that, but it probably will put a dent in some of that, or force them to go into something maybe more lethal type drugs. We're seeing that already. I think we're seeing that in the fentanyl
Right, yeah,
and,
unfortunately.
and the different kind of drugs that are coming out there. The criminal entrepreneur is creative.
Right. No, absolutely.
Right. Now, if the General Assembly reenacts the authorization for actually selling begins January 1st, 2024, and they can start manufacturing and distributing to the retailers in July of 2023. But then again, that's all dependent on it being reenacted. And who knows what's going to happen in the General Assembly in the next year.
Well, we have a election this year.
Yes.
And so, and it could completely switch from Democrat to Republican. So you hear any rumors about if it goes that direction, any changes of...
It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle.
Yes, at that
Is
point.
the thing. I mean, it's
It might tighten up some of these laws, but you think it'll still continue on the personal level?
I don't. Just personal opinion of how I've seen these things work in the past. I don't think there's any unringing that bell. Although they may tighten up some of the restrictions.
Yeah. I can easily see them doing their level best to discourage.
Right.
Like, for example, the Virginia ABC system is essentially designed, it was designed for years to restrict the use of hard alcohol. I remember when you used to have to go up to a counter, look at this badly printed book, and then point out what you wanted, and the guy would go get it from the back and bring it out to you. Yeah. And Virginia ABC stores were like these forbidding Bulgarian gray facilities,
Right.
like the worst kind of government office you could go to.
Right.
So it was an effort by Virginia to legalize but minimize. And I could very easily see a new wave in the General Assembly going towards that
Trying to
more of
tighten
a
it up.
system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that give us 6 months. We'll come back and evaluate what's happened in the previous 6 months and see how the law held up and see how things are going. And in a year from now, we'll see what happens when they come back in session at the first of the year.
Well, our biggest concern is public safety. the new laws are what the new laws are, and some of them are a little fuzzy. Some of them are less clearly defined than some of the other ones are. But obviously some of the biggest things that we're concerned with is safety on the roadways, because again, we've just through some of the research that we've done in other places that have gone down this road, that's kind of a factor. As well as the public nuisance use, because you'll have that just like you have with alcohol.
Sure.
I mean, you'll have people that are,
On that 2% that'll abuse the law.
be sitting on the bench down on Main Street, and you have to, just like when they drink or whatever. We'll have those things to deal with, but again, be safe in making the decisions moving forward with this. And again, just like anything else, use of common sense. With an eye towards safety, and we'll figure out a way through it all. So
That's it. Keep it away from kids. Keep it out of your car. Keep it off the street. Enjoy it in the privacy of your own home.
Right. This is not a license to go out and smoke dope on the. Yeah.
No, this does not basically
This is not Cheech and Chong.
No, this does not basically turn all of Warren County into a giant fish or a Grateful Dead concert.
Right, exactly. So we'll see how that goes. But like you say, keep it away from kids, keep it out of your car, keep it in your house, and
enjoy it responsibly, and you'll have no problems from us.
Yeah. Don't have the chief coming up. We won't go there. Because he's tough, let me tell you, and John's tough. So the old days they throw the book at you. So it sounds like there's a lot of changes. It's being fluid. So be careful and just be responsible and use a little common sense.
Our main goal in all of this is just to keep the community safe, as the chief said. Safety first, and also we're trying to keep a certain tone, out on the streets.
Sure.
We are a tourist town these days. And we want to make this a place where families can come and enjoy without the distraction of people using intoxicants out on the public streets in front of them and their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the chief's not going to tolerate that. So.
No, sir.
We'll see how it goes. Again, Chief, I appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
John, same thing. I appreciate coming in, telling us about this, and keeping us up to date on what's going on in our local laws.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Well, great. Thanks again.
Thanks.